All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the world of big money real estate. We're going to break down how a brand new building really gets off the ground. And it all kicks off with one pretty huge number. Yeah, $19.5 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the kind of money that literally builds things, you know? It can transform an entire city block. But the real question is, what does a number that big actually do? So let's get into it. You know, we see new buildings popping up everywhere, right? But have you ever stopped to think about what happens after the construction is done? I mean, what are those critical financial steps that happen once the last nail is hammered in? Well, that's exactly the story we're going to unpack today. So our story takes us to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's a brand new 57-unit apartment building there, and it just landed this massive $19.5 million deal. But here's the crazy part, the twist. This money isn't for pouring concrete or putting up walls. Nope, the building is already finished. So what in the world is all that cash for? Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. This huge loan, it has two main jobs. First, it's got to pay off all the initial construction costs, refinancing that debt. And second, it's there to fund something called the lease-up phase. And that's just a fancy term for that super critical time when you're trying to find tenants and turn an empty building into an actual, living, breathing community. So to really get why someone would invest this much money, you've got to understand the product itself, right? What exactly are we talking about here? Let's take a look inside. And wow, when you look at the details, you can see why this is such an attractive property. I mean, we're talking high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, a full suite of appliances, even an in-unit washer and dryer. All the stuff that makes an apartment feel like a top-tier home. And with a mix of lofts, studios, and even a penthouse, yeah, it's pretty clear this isn't just any building. It's designed from the ground up to be a place people really want to live. So all in all, we're looking at a total of 57 residential units. That's a pretty big deal. That's 57 brand new homes right there in Milwaukee. And check this out. This is a really important detail. Within that number, 5 of those units are specifically set aside for low-income housing. And that adds this whole other layer of community focus to what's at its heart a commercial project. Pretty cool. But hold on, it's not just apartments. The project also has over 3,000 square feet of commercial space right on the ground floor. I mean, just think about the potential there, right? You could have a cool coffee shop, a little market, maybe a new local business. All of that stuff just adds to the life of the neighborhood. All right, so we've covered the what and the where. Now let's get into the how. How is this whole thing possible? Well, it all comes down to a special financial tool called a bridge loan. And honestly, if you get this, you'll get the whole project. Okay, so a bridge loan is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a short-term loan that builds a financial bridge to get you from point A to point B. So point A is, hey, we just finished construction. And point B is, we've got a stable, fully rented building that can get a normal, long-term mortgage. The bridge loan, it gets you across that gap. And you can see the whole journey right here. Step 1, you take that bridge loan and immediately pay off the construction debt. Get that off the books. Step 2, you use the rest of the cash to cover your operating costs while you're out there marketing the building and signing leases. And then, step 3, once the building is humming along, full of tenants and making steady money, you swap out that short-term bridge loan for a permanent, long-term one. It's that final, absolutely crucial step in a really long game. Now, a deal this big, it doesn't just happen, You need some serious players at the table. So who are they? Let's meet the lender who's fronting the cash and the borrower who had the vision in the first place. So on one side of the table, you've got the lender. EBSC Lending. We're talking about a firm that's invested over $2 billion of its own money. Then, on the other side, you have the borrower, a major institutional investor who manages a portfolio of over 10,000 units. I mean, the main thing to get here is that both sides are total pros. This is not a gamble. It is a calculated, strategic move by people who know this market inside and out. So that brings up a big question. Why Milwaukee? And why right now? An investment of almost $20 million doesn't just happen by accident. You can bet there are some bigger forces at play here. And honestly, the CEO of the lending company, Martin Alex, he kind of said it all. He said this deal underscores our confidence in Milwaukee's potential. So let's unpack that. What exactly is that confidence built on? So if you look at it from the lender's perspective, the logic is crystal clear. First off, there aren't a lot of new developments in that part of town, which means demand is high. Second, the city itself has strong demographic trends and looks like it's really set for growth. And of course, let's not forget, they're betting on a borrower who has a ton of experience and knows exactly how to run a building like this. It's kind of the perfect recipe for a solid investment. And that right there is really the big takeaway. This whole thing isn't just about 57 apartments. A deal this big is a massive vote of confidence. It's like a giant signal to the rest of the market that the really smart, big money investors are looking at Milwaukee and saying, yep, we see a future here, a future worth putting millions of dollars into. So next time you're driving around and you see a crane in the sky or a brand new building that seems to have popped up overnight, you'll know a little bit more about the complicated financial dance that's happening behind the scenes. This deal is just one building block from Milwaukee, and it kind of makes you wonder, right? What's the next big building block going to be in your city?